Hi, my name is Lee Richardson, and welcome to the very first episode of the El Pritchard Show, which may also turn out to be the very last episode of the El Pritchard Show. We'll just have to see how it goes here. So I want to get started with telling you a little bit about myself and background and then this show and why I'm doing this and what I'm hoping to share out with the community and what I hope you can get out of it. And then I want to get into a little bit about what we're going to be building throughout the course of these episodes and what Xamarin is and why you should care. And then I just want to get into some code, because that's what this is really all about. This is about getting into code. I'm really excited about code. I hope you're really excited about code, because that will work out well, because that's what we're going to be doing a lot of. Okay, so yeah, my name is Lee Richardson. I'm a software developer. I've been doing development in the Washington, D.C. area, United States now for almost 20 years. And I've been doing .NET now since like 2001 or whatever. Not exclusively, but I always keep coming back to it. It really is something that I'm very passionate about, something I really love. And I've been doing mobile development now for about 5 years, and I've been doing Xamarin development for about 3 years. And I'm a big fan of Xamarin. I've done some Ionic as well, but my day job is primarily Xamarin. So that's my day job. For fun, and maybe we can get to some of this other stuff in this show. I love building stuff. So I'm a huge fan of electronics, 3D printing, laser cutters, electronics. If it involves sending out a PCB and getting a PCB back in the mail, or doing an Arduino, or doing a Raspberry Pi, then that's totally my type of thing. I get really excited about that kind of stuff. So, and that's, I think, why I like the iOS and Android development so much, is because it's a real world. You're actually interacting with something and touching something, and that's really fun for me. So. The other thing, you may know me as the Siren of Shame guy. So this is a little thing that I've put together and I sell on a website, and you take one of these. It's USB programmable siren. You hook it up to your machine, and then it hooks up to the continuous integration server. There's some software, and if someone checks in some bad code and the build breaks, then it does a little light spinny thing. You can program it to do whatever you want. There's a little light spinny thing, and then you got a sad trombone. So that's just a fun thing that I do, and that's sirenofshame.com. That's I don't know how that relates exactly, but you just it's something you may recognize me from. So yeah, I mean, I do a lot of stuff. You know, if it involves like little LEDs on strips, and that's the type of thing that I do for fun. But this show is not really about that, at least not initially. So initially, this is going to be about building Xamarin apps, and I wanted to do this because I feel like I've been working with this so long now that I've gotten a lot of best practices. I've learned so many things, and I want the opportunity to share those experiences and best practices out with the community. And to date, I've been doing stuff on my blog, so you can see. Let's see. No, not that one. No, not that one. Okay, I'm just getting the hang of this, so you have to bear with me. But yeah, I've got a blog that I do blog to. So this is leerichardson.com, and with nice cheery titles like "Your Code Sucks, Get Over It," which actually is it's not as bad as it sounds. It's actually supposed to be an inspirational article. You'd have to read it to see it. But the point is, I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, and so the blogs take me a long time. I only get about one out a month, and I was hoping with this show to take a very different kind of approach, where it's going to be really hands-on. It's going to be really coding intensive, and more importantly, I'm not going to be doing a lot of preparation to get ready for everything. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do coding. You're going to see me make mistakes. I'm going to be spending some time on Stack Overflow, on Google, figuring stuff out, and hopefully you as an audience can actually chime back in, and you can give me some feedback on how things are going, and we'll just see how it goes over the course of. By the end of this, hopefully you can provide some feedback back to me and let me know if we went in a good direction, if we should go in a different direction next week. So yeah, the plan is to do about an hour, one of these every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and just kind of adjust course and keep it agile, see how things go. So what are we going to be building? I want to build a mobile app that's simple. I want something that's going to be able to get started quickly and easily, but also has some extensibility, so we can try out different things. And don't laugh at me, but what I was actually thinking about doing is this. It's a calculator, and I don't know if this would be hilarious if this crashed. I don't know if this. If you guys have used Windows 10 all that much and checked out the new calculator in Windows 10, it totally crashed. But it started up the second time. But this is actually a really sophisticated, a really cool app. Okay, it looks like a calculator, but it's also got scientific, a programmer. You can do hex, decimal conversion, so that's cool. But you can also convert currencies. Right, so if we were to go and build out this other page in an iOS and an Android app, you'd probably need to be able to go make an API request out, and so that would be a good example of a page where we're doing API requests. This is really cool. So let's do 8 times 9 and 7 plus 5. And if we go over to this little button over here, you can see the history of all the calculations that you've done, and you can go back in and pull them back up. That's kind of cool. And also, you know how standard calculator has just like one memory slot? Well, this is a whole stack of memory slots, which is really cool. So you can do 8 and memory store and 88 memory store, and then you can pull this down and see your list of all of the memory stacks that you've got. And then you can do math with it, stuff like that. So that's really cool. It's actually a very sophisticated app. It also is responsive, which is kind of cool too. Like you're actually seeing those memory stacks right over there, or the history right over there, which isn't something I think maybe applies as much to mobile, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I haven't done much preparation for this. We're just going to sort of go with it and see. Now I've got a project started, so I'm going to share the code up on GitHub. So all code is going to be shared here, which is L Pritchard Mobile Calc. So that will be github.com/lpritchard/mobile-calc, and I can share that in the com/lpritchard/mobile-calc. Bear with me, I'm still learning how all this stuff works. I will share that in the show notes afterwards so that you can get to the code if you're interested in getting to it. I just put together an initial sort of list of issues, user stories as there were. So the very first thing I think we're going to get started with will be like, when you start up the app, I want to see 0 listed in display. Something really simple, and so I hope we'll get to the end we'll finish that and a couple other these simpler ones by the end of the 1 hour session that we have 50 minutes left for. So I'm not going to be super strict about time, but that's kind of the plan here. So now you may be wondering what Xamarin is. Maybe you already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So sorry about your luck if you already know the answer. The Xamarin is a technology which allows you to build iOS and Android applications using C#, which is cool. You may or may not be a C# fan, but what it does that is a lot cooler than that is it allows you to share code between iOS and Android applications. So a traditional development shop that's building applications is going to need your iOS team, and they're going to need your Android team, and you're going to be building 2 completely separate apps using 2 completely separate languages, two unique efforts. It's 2 times the work because you're building 2 completely different apps. With Xamarin, the idea is you can build 2 lightweight apps and be able to share the vast majority of your code using a shared library where all of the code connects into. And so you can end up building 2 apps for maybe 1.5 the amount of work instead of 2 times the amount of work, or maybe 1.1%, 110% of the amount of work. And so you're going to be able to save yourself a lot of time if you're building both cross-platform. So that's the big benefit. I'm going to be talking about classic Xamarin, at least initially, and so in that world you are building 2 If you're in iOS world, you're potentially using a storyboard. If you're in Android, you're potentially using those XML files in XML, and so you're building two native user interfaces. So if you need to lay out like things up here and things down here and things over here, you're gonna still have to do that twice with the classic Xamarin approach. And this is actually a great use case, I think, when you're trying to build something pixel perfect. You want it to be really beautiful. You want animations to pop and look native, and everything to be to look its absolute best. So, but it's also the foundation for another technology, which is Xamarin Forms. And maybe if this thing goes well, we'll do another course and rebuild this whole thing in Xamarin Forms, just so you can compare and contrast. But I consider Xamarin Classic to be a sort of foundation that you build everything else on top of. So I think it's a good place to get started. I should mention another big benefit to Xamarin is that you are getting native performance. Your C# is actually getting compiled down into, in the case of Android, Java bytecode. In the case of iOS, it's getting ahead of time compiled into I think it's just binary. ARM64 binary in the case of most of the modern iPhone 7s and 6s and 5Ss. And so it's fast. It's as fast as native, and that's one of the big benefits as well, versus something like an Ionic, which is Java. It's all 100% JavaScript. You get the same ability for reuse, but it's not going to be quite as fast because it's all being interpreted and run in a browser, in an embedded browser. And it doesn't ever look quite as good too. There's a lot of benefits to Ionic as well, and React Native is the third primary way that you would do these things today, and that is JavaScript. It also gets compiled down to native. It has some drawbacks as well, but I'm a big C# fan, and if you have a C# background or you work in a C# shop, then Xamarin is a no-brainer. It really is a great technology. And so, yeah, so some background. Maybe time to start looking at some code. Do we have anything else that needs to be said? Maybe you're wondering how to get started. So I should probably say there's two main ways to get started. This is Visual Studio right here. Visual Studio is the primary IDE if you're building iOS and Android apps on a PC. If you are on a Mac, then you need to download Visual Studio for Mac, which is it's a sort of lightweight version of Visual Studio that works on a Mac, and it works pretty well. You don't get a lot of the plugins that if you have grown up with ReSharper and nCrunch and some of these plugins that work in your traditional PC Visual Studio environment. You don't get those, but it's a good environment. It's just fine. It's just I feel a lot faster working on a PC in Visual Studio, and so that's where I'm going to be working. So to set this up for the first time, I've got a working environment, but you would install Visual Studio. There's a free community version of Visual Studio that you can use and don't have to pay anything for it, and you just check that checkbox that says cross-platform development using Xamarin or something like that during the setup. It's one of the checkboxes. If you've already installed Visual Studio, you can go back in and modify your installation. Just check that checkbox, and it's going to actually install the Android SDK for you, and it's going to install some emulators, and it's going to pretty much have you being good to go. Now, to do iOS development, it's a little bit trickier because if you're on a PC, because you have to have a Mac in order to do iOS development. That's one of the rules of how this stuff works. And so some people feel like, why bother with having a PC and a Mac and having them communicate? But it's really not that bad. There is I can't show it to you quite yet, but there's going to be a checkbox which is going to show the connection that the PC has to the Mac, and when you are compiling, it's doing some of the compilation on the PC and it's doing some of the compilation on the Mac, and it ends up working pretty well, and we'll get into that and how that works in just a little bit. So I don't know, are there any questions at this point, or should we just start coding? I don't have a good sense of whether there are people that are actually watching this right now and if they have questions, but I'm going to go onto Twitch and Can anyone just, if anyone's online, can you post a like, let's get going? It would just be nice to know that there are other people that are watching this right now. I don't see anything in the chat. And I am typing, hello, is anybody there? I guess one of the problems is you have to create an account. And if you, like me, are new to Twitch, then you are possibly trying to frantically create an account right now as we speak. So, all right. Well, there we go. At least I've got a comment there. So, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I think this will be fun to do a file new project. We're going to do file new project inside of Visual Studio. And if you do this, when you've done those checkboxes that I was telling you about, you're going to have a cross-platform option here, and you can say cross-platform Xamarin. Xamarin means classic Xamarin. Xamarin Forms, again, is going to be that abstraction on top of the classic Xamarin where you're just building a single UI, and maybe I didn't describe this quite as well as I could have earlier. You're going to be building just a single UI for both iOS and Android, and it's still going to be native. It's still going to look and feel native just like Xamarin Classic would, but you're doing it using a different UI language. You're going to be using XAML, XAML, which is Microsoft's UI language for building modern desktop apps, and it used to be this language for building Silverlight apps, if you remember that. And it's a nice language, and you can do a lot with it. But I'm gonna be getting started with Classic. So let me do this, and let's call this. Now I actually already cloned this project earlier, and I think I did that to C dev and then calc. What do we call it? Mobile calc. There it is. So we're gonna put this out to mobile calc, and we'll call this mobile calc, maybe? Does that sound good? And let's just see what this does. So what this should do, and it's probably going to take a little while to do it. Oh, look at this. Okay, we want a blank app. We want a native app. This is actually a really interesting choice here. You're giving the choice between a shared project or a portable class library. And this is one of these raging debates in the Xamarin community about whether you should be using shared projects or portable class libraries. Miguel de Icaza, who is like the grandfather of, well, he's not that old, he's like the father of Xamarin anyway. He is a big proponent of shared projects, as are a couple of the people at the Xamarin show, as well as a number of people are preferred. But there's a whole category of people that love portable class libraries. I have more experience with PCLs. I've actually done both. The big difference here is that if you're doing a shared project, you aren't producing a separate DLL, which is then reused. Instead, with the shared project, you're taking all that code and essentially like you're symlinking it in to your two projects. And so if you have code that needs to be specific to iOS in a shared project world, you can if-def. You can write basically an if-def. Am I in an Android? Then write this line of code. Else run this other line of code. Whereas in the portable class library way of doing things, you generally code to interfaces or abstract classes or something like that. You're coding to something which is going to be plugged in at runtime with an iOS or an Android version of it. There's a little bit more setup involved, but it is a little bit more of a traditional way of doing things. I think if you're more of a sort of a quick and dirty, let's get things done quickly, maybe the shared project makes more sense for you. If you're more of a structured kind of a person, in the PCL approaches for you. Okay, so we're going to do a portable class library because that is more my style. We're a blank app and go. And so what this is going to be doing is this is going to be creating an iOS app, and then it's going to be creating an Android app, and then if this works the way I think it's going to, then it's going to be creating this third portable class library project that they're both going to share code to. And so when we want to share code, we're going to pull in from that center library and be able to get code shared across that way. Oh, yes, and I guess it's also building us a universal Windows platform project so that if we wanted to target Windows, they make it super easy to target Windows as well. And actually, if you don't know what a UWP project is, this calculator here is a UWP app. You can tell it's a modern app because it is it's resizable. You know, that sort of nice resizing capability there is a tenet of UWP apps. They're also hosted in the store, in the Microsoft Store. You don't generally get them from just downloading a random exe somewhere. But we're not focusing on that so much on this project. We are primarily focusing on the portable class library, the Android project, and the iOS project. And I'm tempted to do the iOS project, get that started. Let's just run it and see what it does. If this works, by the way, to do set as startup project, I did a right click, and if you're new to Visual Studio, this may look absolutely intimidating, and that's only because it is absolutely, completely intimidating. And that is just an unfortunate side effect of a very sophisticated IDE. But I guess, you know, it's a learning process. You get into it. Set as startup project, there's a shortcut. If you right click and click the A key, unfortunately, I'm really into keyboard shortcuts. I do keyboard shortcuts all the time, and I'm going to probably have to try to remember to slow down a little bit and tell you what I'm doing rather than just doing them. So what I did was I right clicked and I hit A as set as startup project. And when you've installed Visual Studio for Mac on your Mac, and you've installed Visual Studio with that Xamarin checkbox checked, then you're going to be able to go to this little checkbox right here that says we are connected. And this is going to look on your local network for your Mac. In my case, mine's Lee's MacBook Pro, and it's going to find its IP. It's going to sort of automatically do everything. The only thing is you're going to have to do just a little bit of work sometimes to get it set up for the very first time. And that involves, there's a little tutorial here on what you have to do. You have to go into your Mac, select remote login, and yeah, and there. And that's kind of what you do. It's really not that difficult. So I'm already connected. You can tell because this is green up here and it says connected in parentheses. And let's see. I want to build for an iPhone simulator. We can build on a physical device later, but just to get things going, we don't have to worry about provisioning profiles or any of that messiness with the iPhone simulator. It'll be fast and easy, and we're just going to build it on iPhone 7 Plus. At some point we'll actually build for this guy the iPhone 7, which is what I happen to have a copy of. When you do a lot of mobile development, you end up with an awful lot of phones, so I've got like an old API 19 device on Android, and I do a lot of work on this over here. This is a Nexus, Google Nexus 7 tablet, HTC something or other. I don't know. I've got an old iPhone 4 over here somewhere, which occasionally I need to pull out and test things out on. It's kind of the Wild West. It involves a lot of testing when you're doing all this stuff. So, all right. So, believe it or not, you are seeing an iPhone simulator running on a PC. Woohoo! This is a little error message about it running in 32-bit mode and ARM64. We can worry about those things later. Hello world, click me. Wow, 1 clicks. Oh, 2 clicks. Look at that. It's already doing things. Haven't written a line of code, haven't done anything, and we've already got a working app. I love that. I think that's really cool. This is I should warn you, this is not the UI experience you're going to get. If you have installed Visual Studio Community Edition, you're going to have to actually see this simulator on the Mac. You're not going to be able to see it on the PC. So this is one of the features of Visual Studio Enterprise. If you have a spare like $5,000 sitting around, or a very generous company like Inferno Red, then, which is who I work for in my day job, then you may be able to get a copy of the Enterprise and some of these nice features like being able to run the simulator directly on your PC. And this is really nice if you've got a touch screen, which I don't on this particular computer, but it makes it really easy to do pinch and swipe and various gestures on the device. You can do it right on your screen, which is something you can't do, as you probably know, on a Mac. So that's cool. I don't know, should we run this on an Android just to see what things look like? Maybe we should. Or do we just start writing code? I don't know. The Android, just so that the pump is primed, I'm going to go ahead and do this. This right here is my Android device. If you are on a PC, you've got a number of different choices about, well, even if you're not, regardless of where you are, you've got a number of different choices about how you want to do Android emulation. And there are a number of choices that are long choices and that are very, very slow choices. I don't know if you noticed, but that Genymotion started up real fast. That is not a traditional experience if you, especially on the Mac, if you just install the defaults. I believe you're going to get, it's going to try to emulate an ARM device. The nice thing about Genymotion is it's an x86, it's compiling to x86 instructions, and it's natively running those x86 instructions on the device, which makes everything super fast. It's not quite as realistic because your 95% of your Android devices out there do run ARM, the ARM instruction set. But when you're just trying to code and see the results of stuff, this is probably the experience that you want. Genymotion is a really nice piece of software. It allows you to get an emulator. If you're not coding professionally, then you can get it for free. This is generally considered to be the fastest emulator out there. The other options are when you install the Android SDK, you're going to get some emulators that are ARM emulators, and they're really slow. If you don't go with Genymotion, I'd just go with Genymotion. But if you do install the native ones, what you will need to do is you need to install Haxm, H-A-X-M, and Haxm is the is on PCs. Anyway, if you're on a PC, Haxm is the Intel instruction. The Intel Hardware Accelerated Execution Manager, and that is going to you're going to need to change a BIOS setting, and you run that, and it interprets ARM instructions a lot faster, I believe, is what that does. Anyway, definitely highly encourage you to install that, speed things up. In the meantime, I think it's time to actually write some code. Before we do that, how about we do this? Let's check in. We have just generated a project, and that is always a really good time to check into Git. So I'm going to check into Git, I'm going to push this up, and you will have the very first commit, which is virtually nothing. It's just the default, but it allows you to see your very first actual real code as a separate commit. You can see it much more easily and cleanly. I'm a big fan of committing frequently, very, very frequently. And to that end, you're going to see me commit right now to Mobile Calc, and this will be called, I use SourceTree, by the way. It's a program for Git management that is an IDE, which is available on both both Mac and PC. It's from Atlassian, the Australian company that builds software. Call this the initial project. Let's sort of scan over here. So what do we got? We've got a solution file they generated. The solution files are just a list of all the projects. We've got a Mobile Calc CS proj, which is, that must be the portable class library, I believe. Yes, because it's got a my class in it, which doesn't do anything. The main activity is the place in Android that's the sort of the startup, the public void main, essentially. We know that that's an activity. Activities are the main units of work in Android. They're like pages. Yeah. There's the CS project that goes with it. There's a text file. Let's see what else we got. We've got a bunch of assets. We'll get into assets later when we start doing images and stuff like that. Here's an icon. It's not going to be real visible. You're not going to need to worry about strings. App Delegate is the iOS public void main. It's where you get started on that. If you have done much iOS development, you will recognize that the App Delegate has this language like on, did enter background, will enter foreground. Those are the types of things that you can plug into. Entitlements, there's the info plist. That's a classic file for an XML file in iOS for plugging in things like what's the version that you're in. Oh, that is actually the public void main, which then goes into the App Delegate. Okay. Some iTunes stuff, blah, blah. Assembly info, there's a whole UWP section of this that we don't care so much about. Okay, yeah, so there we go. We're going to check all that. That is all the code that we just got for free, and now we're going to go start modifying it. Okay, here we are, and let's go into the iOS project and let's try and implement the very first feature here, which is on start we want to see 0. As a user, when I start the app, I want to see 0 listed in the display. Let's see if we can do that with the least amount of code possible. So to do that, we're going to go, notice that they use a storyboard here, so that is the traditional way of doing things in iOS land, is to use storyboards. And you can open this up and you can actually see a storyboard, which is like the drag and droppy way of doing things. You can see the storyboard directly in Visual Studio, and you can do your draggy droppy thing, but I would highly, highly encourage you to not use storyboards. Please don't use storyboards. They're okay if you're an individual developer, but as soon as you have anybody, or even the possibility of anybody else working on your project, merge conflicts are nearly impossible to resolve if multiple people edit a storyboard file. Mac really hates developers sometimes, I think, and this is one of the proof points that storyboards exist at all. They're really nice for drag and droppy stuff, but the back end, the XML, which is encoded behind them, just not so great. But yeah, there we go. That's what it actually looks like. We're going to throw that whole storyboard away. Let's just delete it. We don't want it. We don't want a storyboard. Instead, we're going to go into the App Delegate here, and how's the code size? This worked pretty well for you guys? Looks like it should be big enough. Okay. Did enter background, finish loading, window, main.cs, App Delegate, view controller. Okay, we've got a view controller here. Let's just, I don't know, let's just fiddle around. View did load. Well, okay, let's see how, actually, let's see, we'll do a search for storyboard. This is the point at which I am completely off script. Not that there was one. And we're going to try and figure out what broke when I launched that, so I deleted that storyboard. It looks like that was actually specified in the info plist. No, let's just see what happens if we run it. It should break. It should break, right? It's been a long time since I've done this. And from 0, and I can't remember where the storyboards file gets specified from. I thought it was going to be in this app delegate file. The app delegate file is typically where you'd say, on finished launching, this is where I want to actually start up some code. Nope. We want to do iPhone Simulator. We want to build for the iPhone 7s Plus. Let's try that again. I'm pretty sure that the place that's going to complain is the info plist. It'll be interesting to see how it breaks, if nothing else. It worked! Incredible. We didn't need that storyboard, did we? My button, 0 clicks. Huh. Can't believe that worked. All right. So a view controller for those new to iOS, a view controller is it's like a page. It's the main thing that you're seeing. It can have a title bar. It can have a title, and then it can have views within it. And so we'll see UI views and UI view controllers. Let's see if we can actually change this and see see if this is actually working. Lots of exclamations. What you're going to see is on iOS World that the events are named things like Touch Up Inside, which is kind of a strange name. You'd think it would be on click, right? But this is all based on... Oh, hey, it worked. Okay. Okay, let's try and actually put in some, real code. Ooh, you know what's going to break it? This will break it. Let's try this. This is a partial file. So when you use storyboards, the storyboards create a fake class for you. They create, not a fake, but they create a partial. And in the code behind, there's a bunch of code generation which is going on. Every time you say, I want an outlet, which is like an event source, they write code here in the background in this designer file. And the designer file then gives you a lot of the functionality. So what if we just deleted? You know what? Let's just delete the whole view controller. And one thing I really encourage is good code organization. They did not start out with very good code organization, and almost every project that I've ever worked on has slowly adapted towards this. It started one way, and almost everyone's ended up moving towards this way of organizing code, where there's a folder called Views, which contains, confusingly a little bit at first, UI view controllers. And that's because this is, a lot of people end up in this design pattern called Model View View Model, MVVM, and so they like to refer to their things, which are displaying front-end things to people, as views. So we're going to add a new class, and we'll call this just make this class, please. And let's call this you want to call it the main page, maybe, or the calc. I mean, what we're trying to, again, show is we are going to want something that represents this thing right here, initially anyway. So let's call this main view controller. Yeah, not great. Public class, and we're going to inherit from the UI view controller, and I don't know, should we even, yeah, let's do a couture, do a constructor, and okay, there's this format that we've adopted on the current project, which makes life an awful lot easier when you're doing 100% code-based UIs, and that is you have a high-level add views. But the problem is you can get spaghetti code really fast and really easy, and we're trying to avoid spaghetti code. So so I'm going to do an add views, and maybe that's enough. So we're going to do UI button. I have some templates that I use to make things a little bit easier. This was a template which just creates a button. And so we're going to call add button, and we're going to pass in the view. So each view controller has a main view, and so we're just passing in that main view. And then we're going to call this the main button. And really, we want a label too. So let's just see if we can get a UI label. Right, like that. And string text. Maybe we want this label to have that labeled on. I think it's a text property, right? Yeah, text. Okay, so we're going to say label that text equals text, and then here we're going to add label, and we're going to call this, this is the parent object will be the view, and the text will be, for now, let's just say hello world. And that's a main label. And the traditional way to do layout in iOS is to, you want to do, they use auto layout. So auto layout, think about it like a relative layout. Like I want this to appear up here, and I want this to appear right below it, but centered. And I want this other thing to appear relative to this other thing, maybe 20 pixels below it and 20 pixels to the right. You're basically laying out all of these, all of the things on the page based on these constraints. Now, I'm going to do it by hand the very first time, and it's going to be ugly and messy, and then I'm going to show you a way better way to do it. So we're going to do add constraints, and let's just start by putting the label up top. We're going to align it to the top of the page, to the left of the page, and hook it over to the right of the page, and we're going to allow its bottom to be whatever height it wants to be. We'll just allow it to grow to its own height. So I believe we do view.add constraint, and then well, let's see, we'll do the top constraint, yeah, equals, I don't know, can you do new NS constraint, NS layout constraint? No. The common pattern in iOS is to have a static creator object. It's like a factory pattern. And so this is a factory pattern here where we're going to create a new layout. We need to say what we want to be constraining. In this case, we want to constrain the main label. And we're constraining the top. Yep, and we're constraining the top to the view. That would be the main view within the UI view controller. So we're going to constrain it to that, to the views. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. What just happened? Okay, hang on. Here we go. Bear with me. We're saying view 1. I'm looking right up here. I hope this isn't too small on your screen, but the very first thing says native view 1. NS layout attribute, which is top. Oh, relation. Oh yeah, and we want to say we want it to be equal to. That's right. And we want to be equal to it. There's a much easier way, but I just want to show you I want to show you some of the pain before I show you the much nicer way. So bear with me. And so we want to be equal to the view. That's the main view pages. And then we want it to be equal to its top. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost here. And then we want the multiplier to be 1. We could say we want it to be, it doesn't even make sense, anything else, 1. And then the constant would be 0. Whew! We did it. Okay, well, at least it's compiling. So that's a thing, I guess. So we want to do that. We want to constrain the left to the views left, and we want to constrain the views right to the views right, and maybe that's enough. We're going to see hello world if this works. And now, if we compile this, I did Control-Shift-B to compile. We should, hopefully we're going to see a compiler error about the startup object not existing because we deleted that other view controller. Worked. This will be interesting. I'm going to hit F5. We're going to see what's going to happen. It really should fail. Please fail. Okay. Please fail, please fail, please fail. Yes, we failed! All right. No, trust me, that's really a good thing here. Okay, unknown key exception UI view controller. This class is not key value coding compliant for the key button. Ooh, that I don't even know what that means. I have absolutely no idea what that means, but I think it originates in this info p list. And main interface, launch screen. No, that's fine. Okay, wait a minute. We've got an application name, so that's the bundle identifier. That's going to be important later. That's a really important value that identifies this app. Okay, we've got version numbers. Remember, this is all an XML file behind the scenes, but Visual Studio has made this real easy to digest. Okay, so we've got a deployment target. Main interface, launch screen, devices, that's fine. These are our orientations, so that's important. The status bar style, no, good so far. Okay, app icons, we'll get into that later. That's going to be in this resources file, no, asset catalogs. You can see under asset catalogs, that's the new way of bundling images in iOS. I'll get to that later. iTunes artwork capabilities, advanced. Whew, okay. Well, this is where things get interesting. We're going to have to start Googling around. So let's see. We want Xamarin iOS without a storyboard. Does that sound good? Can you create a dynamic launch screen? No, we don't want a launch screen. Images, no. Xamarin iOS, navigate to another view controller without storyboard. By the way, the documentation, I gotta tell you, the documentation in Xamarin is really good. So we might actually jump over to user interface in iOS. Parents creating user interface objects, layout options, providing haptic feedback, working with the UI thread, introduction to view controllers. How about startup object in Xamarin iOS? Oh, how about this? This looks good. Okay, we're gonna run. I really do know what I'm doing, I swear. I haven't started too many projects from scratch, and it's been a while, so I just, understanding the architecture, modifying. And this may be the point in the presentation where I'm just going to start losing people, but entitlements? No, it's not entitlements. I know it's not entitlements. It should be the app delegate. It should be finished launching. Okay. Well, no, I really shouldn't. Oh wait, I've got to delete me. I've got to delete me iOS, and I just did this the other day over here in this other project, so I'm going to steal some code from over here. And in the app delegate, I actually didn't run into this. I did a brand new project the other day, and I didn't run into this. So let's take a look into the info p list. Hello? Yes, using Notepad 2. UI launch, storyboard name, launch screen. That had this. We had the same thing in ours. Okay, and in the app delegate, more importantly, there we go. That's the code we need. That's the code we need. Okay, here we go. On finish launching. New main view controller, MAIN. Yes, import that. I'm going to make you invisible. Return tree. This is going to work. This is going to work. I just hit F5. All right, wait for it. Wait for it. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. And it didn't crash. Yay to not crashing. We also did not see the label. So what might be interesting is we went and just put a breakpoint in here. It'd be really interesting to see if we hit the breakpoint. So there is a really nice fast way of restarting. You hit that restart button and you don't have to wait for the time for the app to recompile. It just reruns the existing binary that you have, which is a super fast way to get started back again. Look at that. Okay, so we did add views. We added a button. That's good. We created a new button. We added it to the parent subview, which is the main view. Yep. Okay. It's good. Subview and add label. Okay. Yep, that's good. And add constraints. And we were constraining our label. Okay, we can try this. Maybe we didn't set a background color and we needed to. I'm feeling good about this. All right, I'm going to add a label. And maybe one of the properties we want for the label is label dot. I always get a little tripped up when I go back and forth between iOS and Android. In Android world, everything is a set this, set that, because there didn't used to be properties in Java. And in iOS, there's just background color equals. We could say, I don't know, let's get cyan, see what happens. I'm a big fan of this way of structuring code, by the way, where there is just a single method for each view instantiation. And if you organize this code, you're going to find you end up with lots of nice little tight short methods, and everything's going to be considerably easier as time goes by to follow. Okay, well, okay, we might still have something wrong. Let's try this. Let's try setting the background color of that guy. So view dot background color equals UI color dot green. And this might be a problem with my constraints. I don't know. We'll see. We're just going to have to fiddle around with it a little bit and see how this goes. Okay. Well, we have actually successfully gotten to the main view controller. We're close. We're really close here. Here's what I'm going to try. Well, got view dot add constraint. We said we wanted our main label's top to be equal to the view's top, and it's possible we wanted the multiplier to be 1 and the additional constant to be 1. That looks correct. Now we said we wanted the main label's left to be, okay, well, here's another thing. So there's two main ways we can, instead of using auto layouts, I might be using auto layouts wrong, We can also say, you can also just, and the older way of doing things is just to give it the exact bounds, to give each view the exact bounds where you want it to display. Like I want you to display it 0, 0, and through 100, 100. And so let's just try doing that and see if that works. So we're going to go into this label here, and when you instantiate the label, you do a new rect. So you can do rect, cg rect. What am I saying that? Not empty, not infinite. How about just new cg rect, and let's display it at 0, 0. And we want a width of 200 and a height of 80. Let's see if we get some cyan with that. If this works, I'm going to say I'm terrible at writing constraints from hand, and we're going to go right into the advanced way of doing it. Hopefully I've given you a sense of how painful doing constraints by hand is. Oh, hey, look at that. All right. That actually was the problem, was I'm not very good at doing constraints by hand. I could look that up if you guys are interested, but theoretically we're getting towards the end of the show, and it would be nice if we actually could finish with something. So let's do this. This is the best trick ever. There's this thing called Easy Layout. It's Easy Layout from Frank Kruger for Clarium. Let's try Google search. Yes. Let's Easy Layout gist. It should be a gist. Sure. There we go. Whew, that took a little too long. Okay, this is a really cool framework. You just copy the code in, paste it in, and it converts link statements into those NS constraints that I was showing you earlier. So what we can do is we can just select this whole thing, and we're going to add maybe a new folder for utils or something. Utils, and we're going to add to that. Oops, add to that. Easy Layout, and I think we just post, nope, yeah, we can just paste the whole thing into it. There we go. And what you're getting at a high level is you're just getting this constraint layout call. Oops, got too much. Okay, so let's go back to adding our label. And we do not want that CG rect. I'm having too much fun saying that, aren't I? Add views, add constraints, and now what we really wanted to do was view dot constraint layout. And what we're going to do here, we're going to specify that our main label dot frame dot top is equal to view dot frame dot top. There we go. And actually, I kind of like these ands at the beginning of the line. Total personal preference, but it makes things a little easier for me. So we want the top of the frame to be equal to the view frame's top, and we want the left to be equal to view frame's left. And we want the right to be equal to view frame's right, and let's see if that works. It is now 10 o'clock. I don't know if I've exceeded anyone's time, but we could call this, if we can get at least that very first user story completed, where I can see a 0, I would consider this a success, given enough background and fiddled around. Hey, there it is. There it is, hello world, right up there. This worked. This actually worked, and in order to be able to call this a check-in, I think what we have to do here is in add views, we need to say 0, and we need to change our constraints so that main label frame top is equal to the frame top plus. For now, let's give it 40. I think is generally about the size of the status bar. There's other ways of doing this, but this will be good enough for now. All right, very exciting. We've got a 0, and perhaps the absolutely ugliest UI ever. So I'm going to call that a commit. And inside of our commit, we should see there was that little bit of code that we added to instantiate the main view controller, to create a new window, and to window make key invisible. And then in our CS proj, just to review this, I don't know what that is. Whatever. We did delete the storyboard. We sure did. We deleted that default view controller. We did that. We got rid of the storyboard, the view controller designer. We added easy layout, and we added our main view controller, which is just a very simple getting started hello world kind of a thing over here. So this is whoops, don't care about this one. Don't care about this one. What we do care about is start C0. This is case issue number 1. Actually, I think we'd say resolves. No, actually it doesn't. It's just issue number 1 in GitHub. And if we commit that and we push changes immediately, because we are actually streaming live, so if anyone wants to see any of that code, it should have immediately gotten pushed up and associated with that, so that's cool. Because these were originally only going to be hour-long episodes, I guess I'm going to call that the end of the class, as it were, the end of the session. I think what the very next thing we should do is to get into the Android side of doing things and do the exact same thing in Android, and then so I'll save that for the next episode, and then you got something to look forward to. Hopefully, it won't be quite as difficult getting the initial project getting started, but that's real world development, right? Getting started is often a little bit tricky. Hopefully, you learned something in the process. I think this was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. I hope you learned something. And if you did, I hope you'll consider spreading the word and sharing this podcast and letting people know by subscribing to this channel, maybe sharing it out on Twitter, Facebook, or whatnot. And I hope you'll share comments in the feedback. Let me know what worked, what didn't, if you found any value in this, and maybe where we should go next time, what we should do next time. So I want to thank you for sticking with me this far, and I hope to see you again next week on the L. Pritchard Show. Until then, have a wonderful week.